Hey guys, it's Dodgy, and I'm back with another non-sweaty review, the in-depth review for casual gamers. Today, I'm going to be going over Gray Zone Warfare. If you followed me for VR stuff, don't worry, there's more coming. But I love flat games too, and I've been having a lot of fun in Gray Zone lately, so I gotta follow the inspiration when it hits. I know this review is a little late. I've just been busy in the physical world, but I'm also sort of realizing that with games like this, as in very ambitious and complex games that launch into early access, it's not a bad idea to give it a month or two before doling out my hot takes. Oftentimes, these games launch with pretty substantial bugs that would make someone think twice about playing, and they tend to get ironed out pretty quickly. I'm not sure if it's totally fair to put up a review that people might watch in the future, which includes criticisms of serious launch issues that are no longer present in the game. At the time of posting, Gray Zone has been out for about 2 months and received a few pretty large patches already, including one that came out a few days ago and fixed a bunch of issues that I was originally going to mention in this video, which just serves to further illustrate the point I'm making here. With that in mind, and as you watch this review, especially if you're watching it a few months or years after posting, I want you to underpin everything I say, particularly any criticisms, with the notion that any given issue or mechanic may very well have already been addressed, changed, or will otherwise be attended to in the future. When I first heard about Gray Zone, I was excited and intrigued, but I also tempered my expectations a bit. It just seemed like it could be one of those early access games that promised something completely different with top-of-the-line Unreal 5 graphics, but in reality, might end up falling short. Well, I was wrong, and I'm happy to report that Gray Zone Warfare really does deliver on its promises. It really is doing something different, and in a lot of ways, it's exactly what an early access release should be. The gaming landscape has changed a lot since I was a kid. It used to be that a game would release, fully finished, and that was it. You'd play it, have your fun, and move on to the next game. But as games have gotten more and more complex, they've become more of a living, growing organism than a one-off product. There are pros and cons to this, but overall, I think it's really cool that a good game can stay relevant for so many years and grow and change in response to community feedback. Video games are such a unique experience. I really can't think of any other entertainment or artistic medium that shares that quality, where you can immerse yourself into a world, and the developers of that world can respond to its inhabitants, and you can experience it growing and changing, becoming more fleshed out and in-depth over time. I know that a lot of us bemoan the all-too-often tendency of game developers to use early access as a shield against criticism and siphon money out of their players without ever completing their games, but the flip side is that when an honest developer uses early access the way it was intended, we can end up with games that provide us with an unprecedented level of depth and immersion, simply because it just requires a lot of time and money to be able to get a game to that point at all. And I think that Madfinger Games has so far shown itself to be one of those developers that is utilizing early access properly. Gray Zone isn't complete. It's an early access pre-alpha experience, and it's important that you understand that. They've stated that it's currently about 30% of its final form, but it's already a solid game. It's totally playable with plenty to do, and the core systems are fleshed out and ready to go. Obviously, it needs a lot more content, and there are going to be ongoing tweaks, changes, overhauls, and fixes, but it's not like they released a half-baked game here, and that's what I mean when I say that they're using early access in the way that it was intended. All of the fundamentals are there, and it's totally fun to play in its current state, but there's a lot more coming down the pipeline, and I'm very excited to see what it grows into. Before we get started, I want to outline a few thoughts I have on the expectations held by some elements of the community lately. There's been a lot of talk about the sharp decline in the player base since launch. The Steam reviews are sitting at mixed, and yeah, the game has definitely lost a lot of people, but my question to you guys is just how many of those people were ever really going to stick with the game in the first place? This game got hyped up by a bunch of content creators prior to launch, and it dropped right in the middle of the Tarkov drama. I put it to you that no game in this genre can ever be realistically expected to hold a 50 to 70,000 concurrent player count. It just doesn't happen. Here are the current player counts of the other most popular games in this genre. I took these at 4 p.m. on a Saturday. They've been out for years, built dedicated fan bases, and are nowhere near that number, and likely never will be. Not to mention that Hell Let Loose and Squad have been getting a lot of attention from content creators lately, so those numbers may even be a little inflated at the moment. To me, it seems like Gray Zone is right in line with all the similar games, especially considering that it's a pre-alpha game. The reality of the situation is that most people just don't want to play hyper-realistic, violent, punishing, tactical milsim shooters. They just don't. I bet a ton of the people that dropped off just tried the game and realized that it wasn't for them. There's a reason that Call of Duty and Fortnite are dominating the charts. Games like this are niche experiences, and I don't think it's fair to cry dead game just because the hype died down, especially when you're still left with the exact size player base that I would have expected for a game like this in its current state. I think a lot of people need to reset their expectations and be a lot more realistic about the speed at which this game is going to be updated, especially when it comes to new in-game content, not just patches and bug fixes. I think there might just be a fundamental lack of understanding about just how complicated game development really is. Now, I'm not a game developer, but I do work in a fairly technical field, and friends of mine do work in various aspects of game development. Nothing about it is really easy. Things that might appear to be a simple fix may be set up in such a way so as to require many other things around them be changed in order to compensate or keep other systems from breaking. Modern video games are an incredibly complex blend of 3D modeling, coding, level design, audio engineering, graphic design, network infrastructure, and more. And if it's a PC game like this, it all has to run on drastically different hardware on top of it. It's really kind of incredible that we have games that are as complex as they are, and that any of this shit works at all. Now, I've been seeing a lot of people online demanding new content and complaining that some of the major issues haven't been fixed within the first few patches. And look, I'm not here to just blindly defend the developers, but I do think there might just be a misunderstanding about how time-consuming it is to fix a lot of the issues that the community is most concerned about right now. Things like aimbody AI and helicopter pathing are likely very complex core systems and need to be dealt with carefully when making significant changes so as not to cause additional things to break. I've been keeping tabs on this game since it was announced, and the developers have shown themselves to be committed to the game and are very transparent and responsive to community feedback. They've already been adding things that we all wanted, like ADS sensitivity adjustment and the ability to see helicopter destinations, and nothing about their behavior has led me to believe that they are just plowing ahead with no concern for player feedback. They appear to be doing all of the things that gamers so often condemn AAA developers for not doing, things like fixing ground-level bugs before adding new content. So far, and as far as I'm concerned, Madfinger has been approaching this in the right way. They are working on polishing what they have before making drastic changes, and I have absolutely no problem with that. I don't care about new guns if I'm falling through the map or unable to loot my body, both of which are things that were addressed in the latest patch. The trade-off here is that content updates are going to take longer, so just keep that in mind as you watch this review. You are buying into an early access experience in every sense of the phrase. This is an incomplete game, and you are agreeing to be an alpha tester in exchange for a discounted price. That's the deal, and that's what's happening, and it annoys me to see so many people with such unrealistic expectations. Look, if it was a year in and we still haven't seen any of the major issues addressed, then fine, go ahead and complain, but it's only been 2 months. In a way, it's a sign of how much people are already starting to fall in love with the game. They want more content, and I truly understand that, but I think there is plenty to do already, and I want to encourage more studios to take Madfinger's approach here. They know that we are all desperate to see this game grow, and they're releasing frequent community briefings and public Discord calls where they take questions from what they call community leaders, basically YouTubers and streamers who play the game a lot. They've been super open about their intentions for the game, what they're willing to compromise on, and what they have a detailed vision for. I'm perfectly happy waiting longer for a polished experience, and I'm already super impressed by the game in its current state, so I can only imagine what's coming in the future. Alright, let's get into the core gameplay so you have an idea what you're getting into. The game takes place in a fictional Southeast Asian country called the Democratic Republic of Lemang, where something has gone terribly wrong, presumably around this area, here in the center of the map. We don't know exactly what happened yet, and Ground Zero won't be open for a while. Grayzone is fundamentally a new twist on the extraction shooter formula. The Steam page says that it's an intense tactical FPS emphasizing realism, but I could have sworn that it used to say something else, so I went to the Wayback Machine before it was released, and sure enough, it used to say a maximum focus on realism. Maybe a little preemptive expectation setting going on, but hey, I get it. It's not exactly realistic to do surgery on yourself in 30 seconds while under fire, but we'll get to that later. The game is 100% a realism-focused game though, so I am going to be approaching it from that lens. Obviously, it is still a video game and it needs to be playable, but I believe that they are attempting to make everything as realistic as is reasonably possible, and without making it a chore to play, and I'm here for it. It shares a lot of elements that Tarkov players will be used to, but it puts its own unique spin on it. I'm not a Tarkov player, by the way. I only played it once or twice, so nothing I say here is coming from the perspective of comparing it to Tarkov. When you load in for the first time, you'll be asked to select a faction. You've got the Lemang Recovery Initiative, the good guys, Crimson Shield International, the bad guys, and Mithras Security Systems, the guys who are just in it for a paycheck. The faction you select is important because you'll only be able to squad up with your friends if you guys are on the same team, so make sure you plan ahead. If you do choose incorrectly though, don't worry, you can wipe your character and reset, but I do believe that you can only do it once in a while to prevent people from resetting over and over and then giving their starter gear to their friends. When you first spawn in, you'll find yourself in your faction's base, in a 45-player server, 15 per faction, where everything is persistent. While in your base, you can mess with your stash and loadout, buy gear, and accept tasks from the various vendors. To get to your mission locations, you call in a Little Bird helicopter that will take you to whichever landing zone you choose, and this is one of the coolest features of the game. After the initial loading screen, you'll never see another one. The entire game is played in real time. Everything is persistent until you leave the server. Drop something on the ground 30 minutes ago, it'll still be there if you go back to the same spot, and assuming nobody else took it. Each faction has a starter town, and that's where your first missions will take place. These towns have easier AI enemies, and the LZs can only be accessed by your faction, so you're unlikely to encounter enemy players. Be careful though, because other factions can still land nearby and hike into your starter town. My friend and I ended up in a 20-minute standoff until we were finally able to draw out the enemy squad and kill one of them.
He's in this bush. He's running. That's him. That's him. Holy shit. We got him. Lord Farquaad is dead. Lord Farquaad is dead.
But if you ever find yourself in a similar position, try not to forget about his teammate and then run out into an open field. Well played, sir, but stop hunting noobs in starter towns. You're better than that. A lot of the locations on the map are already starting to get their own reputation. For instance, Ban Pa and Tiger Bay are known to be particularly difficult.
Alright, Ban Pa. Welcome to the suck.
The AI seems to behave differently in different areas, which is pretty cool, and the game is already starting to feel alive with lore. Once the little bird touches down, you are vulnerable to attack. And you don't just walk into an extraction zone once you've completed your mission. You'll have to wait for your extract to get there to get out of the field alive. This does, of course, present the issue of LZ camping, which is definitely a problem, and we're going to touch on that later. They did just add 9 additional LZs though, which should spread everyone out a little more and make it less likely that a team is waiting for you. I will admit, it's really hard to resist the urge to head back to the LZ when you hear a helicopter landing. I've done it too. I wasn't camping, but it essentially played out that way. I still died though. I really like the helicopter transport feature. It adds a sense of immersion and tension that no other game has really had before. It seems like a small thing, but removing the loading screens between missions does so much for my immersion into the world. Starfield players get it. There's this sense of relief when you get back to base after being out on a long mission that I've only really felt in this game. There's just something about being out in the field, dealing with really difficult combat, finally completing a few objectives and safely extracting that leaves you feeling like, damn, that was a lot. And there's a sense of tension when you get back on the chopper to go out again, knowing what you're about to walk into. And when you're out on a mission in a PvP server and you hear a helicopter landing nearby, only to check the map and see that there are no friendly teammates in your area, it's like, oh shit, here we go. I really like it. I don't think any flat screen shooter has ever gotten my heart racing as much as this one has, and as game engines and server capabilities cross over into the next generation, this is the type of stuff that I want to see more of. It does come with some downsides though, the biggest of which is probably just the amount of time that you're waiting around for a helicopter. See, the game was developed around squads of 4 going out into the field together, and you can fit 4 people on one chopper, but apparently the game sold a lot more than the devs were expecting. They've stated that there are a lot of solo players calling in choppers that they hadn't initially accounted for. Apparently there is this delicate balance going on behind the scenes to ensure that all the different factions' helicopters don't run into each other, so at the moment, each faction can only have 4 of them in the air at once, and that can lead to denied requests and long wait times for extraction.
Request denied. All available birds are in flight.
Honestly though, I've played quite a bit at this point and it hasn't been as bad as other people have described it, but that's just my experience, and a good portion of the community has been pretty annoyed by the amount of time that they're just waiting around for a helicopter. Sometimes upwards of 8 to 10 minutes, which is admittedly pretty crazy.
Damn, party at Hunter's Paradise, huh?
Yeah, I was just running them through some of the starter missions. Now I got 8 minutes until the helicopter comes so we can go to YBL.
Oh, Jesus.
That being said, the developers have stated that they are working on a fix for the helicopter situation, but that it's pretty complex and will take some time. And like I said in my intro, this is exactly the kind of thing that Early Access is for, and as long as they remain open and transparent about the issues and their response to them, it doesn't bother me. Let's talk about graphics and performance, because I know that the graphics were the big wow factor when this game was first announced, and with good reason. I mean, look at this shit. This is a video game. It's nuts. For context, this is what games looked like when I started playing them. The first thing you'll notice when you finally get a chopper is the expansive forest of fully rendered trees that stretch out over the horizon. It's really pretty impressive, and it's so cool that we're starting to see some of the more groundbreaking advancements made possible by Unreal Engine 5 start to make their way into shipped games, and Greyzone takes full advantage of all the bells and whistles. The lumen lighting system is very cool, and it looks incredibly realistic, but the most jaw-dropping feature has got to be the foliage. The sheer amount of shit growing out of the Le Mans substrate is staggering. I've never seen a game render so many plants and trees at once. The concealment they provide is an important aspect of the core gameplay, and they all react to bullets and soldiers moving through them. I do hope that all the other objects in the world eventually get physics though. As it is now, nothing reacts to being shot. I'd really like to see shit fly off the tables and grenades knock chairs over and stuff. I know it's probably a server-side thing, given that every object that moves needs to be updated on the entire server for everyone. I'm feeling like we probably won't ever get interactable objects, but hey, here's hoping. The level of detail in the world is pretty jaw-dropping as well. Everything is expertly modeled and the attention to environmental detail is remarkable. The world is littered with random stuff that you would expect to see in a real-life location, from big things like obscure construction and infrastructure equipment to little things like cigarettes on the ground, coffee cups, magazines, boxes, and random debris. Car windows are smeared with dust, and there are so many random objects that I would have never thought to add, but that would totally be in a location like this, like random buckets, carpets, cans, stools, and sheet metal, terracotta pots on front porches, or 2 sawhorses outside of a shed. On top of that, all of it is part of the environmental storytelling regarding what happened to Le Mans. This might be the most detailed and realistic open world that I have ever seen in my entire life. It's nothing short of astounding. Okay, you might be thinking, that's all well and good. It looks amazing, but what kind of rig do I need to run it? Well, do you remember that old meme about can it run Crisis? Yeah, fuck that. Can it run Gray Zone? And the answer is no. No, it probably can't. The performance is probably the biggest issue with the game right now and what the community is most up in arms about. This game runs hot, and from what I've seen, you'll need a decently modern rig to be able to play it at all. That's not to say you need a 4090 though. My friends are able to run it on 30 series cards with mid to high range CPUs, and I've even played with people on 10 series cards, but it's barely running at low settings. Performance is probably going to be the main issue that a lot of you guys are going to run into. It's been running great for me, but I have a really high-end desktop rig with a 4080 and a 13900K. I play on a widescreen display at 3840 by 1600, and I'm getting 70 to 80 FPS with DLSS and frame gen turned off, and about 100 to 120 with them enabled. From what I've been able to gather, it seems to run best on 40 series cards. I mean, obviously, but it's not like you won't be able to play it on older cards, it's just that performance seems to be pretty inconsistent. Some people are getting weird graphics bugs, and others are getting really bad stuttering, and other people are experiencing a lot of crashes, even on pretty high-end rigs. A friend that I play with has a more middle-of-the-road system that I think is more representative of what the average player might have. He's running a 7th gen i7 and a Radeon RX 6800 XT, which is roughly equivalent to an NVIDIA GTX 3080, so an older processor with a newer card. He's playing at 1440p with FSR enabled on medium settings and is getting 90 to 100 FPS when nothing is happening, but it can drop to 50 or 60 during intense combat, and his CPU is pegged at 100% all the time. So yeah, it's not going to be great if you're on an older rig or even a modern laptop card right now. It's playable, but don't expect 120 FPS if you're on a mid to lower spec system. That being said, the latest patch claims to have made improvements to VRAM optimization, and the devs have stated that performance improvements are a high priority for them. But as it stands right now, you're definitely going to be better off on a higher end system, and you might run into issues until they can push out more fixes. I will say though that if you're still on a 10 or 20 series card, we're kind of at the point where you're going to start pushing up against the wall of what you can reasonably expect it to be capable of. Don't get me wrong, I know that life is tough right now, and that a lot of us are struggling. It's not that easy to just go out and buy an overpriced modern GPU, but I do think it might be time for PC gamers who are still on 10 and 20 series cards to start considering an upgrade. I'm actually pretty amazed at how long these cards have held up, the 10 series in particular. The 1080 was a beastly card for its time that is, amazingly, still able to run a lot of modern games. But if you really want the full experience, I think we're at the point where we can't reasonably expect these older cards to keep pace anymore. The game is 100% in need of serious optimization. I'm not going to sit here and defend the performance, but I also don't think that it's fair for someone on a 10 series card to complain that they can't run a game like this. At this point, we can't reasonably expect an 8-year-old card to be able to handle the latest games. The 30 series cards are great, and you can find a used one for pretty good prices. While at your base, you can access different vendors. All of the vendors have different tasks that they want you to complete in exchange for gear, cash, and reputation. Do enough tasks, buy enough gear, and you'll level up that vendor, unlocking better equipment that you can purchase. It's a pretty simple system, and while a lot of the tasks are super vague, often saying something like, go here and find out what happened, as if that means anything, they're fairly bare bones right now. Go and discover an area, go grab this package, go deliver this package, place a tracker on this or that thing. It's not very deep, and all the tasks essentially boil down to go here and press F, but I don't know, I think that's fine, because in a game like this, it's not about the tasks you complete, it's about the people you kill along the way. Oh, fuck! Oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus Christ. The game is really about the combat and survival. The tasks are just there to give you a reason to venture out into the field at all, but the combat is the real selling point for me, and it is intense. This is some of the most unforgiving and realistic combat that I have ever experienced in a video game. I'd put it right up there with 6 Days in Fallujah in terms of brutality and emphasis on realism. It's difficult, and you need to move slowly, call your movements out to your squad, and check every corner. This isn't really a game you can turn your brain off and play. You've got to go into it with your brain on if you want to make it back to base, and the fun is in the challenge. Seriously, I want to linger on this for a second because I want to impress upon you just how unforgiving this combat is. You're going to need to be covering your teammates while they move, then have them post up and cover you.
Or this is where I drop it off.
This is going here, I think, is where you drop off the thing.
Dude, you guys almost just got fucking murdered. I think I was right next to you.
I didn't even see him
Jesus.
until the last second.
Fuck.
Yeah, I didn't see shit.
When you take fire, you need to get to cover immediately. You can't just stand there and shoot back like in most games. Enemies move around and hunt you. They aren't predictable, and you aren't necessarily safe just because you already cleared an area. Other enemies might be moving in to attack. This is a hardcore, tactical, brutal milsim with an extreme emphasis on realism. And I just want you to be informed about exactly what this game is so you can make a conscious purchasing decision. There is a pretty unforgiving stamina system that you will have to contend with during firefights. You are a PMC carrying a lot of heavy gear after all, and the amount of it that you're carrying and how much running and jumping you're doing will affect your aiming stability and ADS duration. And there is a tired arms mechanic that will limit how long you're able to have your weapon in a fire-ready position. At first, the tired arms thing was pretty annoying, and I mean, it still is, but once you get used to it, it's not like it's unmanageable. I'm just not sure how realistic it is that you would suddenly be unable to hold your gun up in the middle of combat.
Alright, on your count. Hold on. I need to have my arms rest.
Something tells me you'd find the strength when the bullets are flying, but then again, guns are fucking heavy, so I don't know. I'd like to hear from someone who's actually experienced it. If you've been in actual combat and played the game, I'd be curious to know what you think about the tired arms mechanic. Were there moments where you just could not aim your weapon anymore while under fire, or is this mechanic a bit overblown? I also don't really like how you can't do simple things like step over a log when you're out of stamina. I've been backpacking with heavy gear, and even when I was dead tired, I was still able to step over things. I'd like to see the jump height decreased but not eliminated, enough to jump over small objects. A 2-foot retainer wall should not prevent me from escaping enemy fire. I kinda think the entire stamina system is a little bit too punishing at the moment, so I hope they dial it in over time. The main game mode is called Warfare, and it's PvE-VP, player versus enemy versus player, in that order. The primary focus, as stated by the devs, is co-op against AI, with occasional encounters between enemy factions sprinkled in. As you might expect with that as the intended experience, the AI are receiving a lot of attention, and I think they're already really good overall. They hunt you down and are generally pretty lethal. There are two major issues with them at the time of making this video though. The first is their ability to respond to long-range fire immediately and with pinpoint accuracy. As it stands right now, you can be concealed in a bush with a sniper rifle, take a shot from 100 meters away at an enemy with its back turned to you, and they will spin around, locate you, and score a kill shot using some bullshit AK with iron sights in under a second. It doesn't happen all the time, and while it has happened to me, I wasn't able to get a great clip of it for the video, but if you go on Reddit, you'll see lots of posts with videos like these. This is obviously frustrating and totally unrealistic, but the community has been quite vocal about it, and the devs have addressed it directly and said that major AI improvements will be coming in a future update. The second issue is that they can be super bullet spongy in the higher tier areas. What the fuck, dude? That guy just took so many fucking rounds. I'd like to see the AI react to being shot even if the shots hit their armor. Body armor just stops the bullet. It doesn't negate the force of a round traveling at 2,500 feet per second. I'm not a gun guy, so I did a little research and read some accounts from soldiers to make sure that I'm not talking out of my ass here, but it seems like shots to body armor from a 5.56 round, which is the round that most players will be using right now, will still break ribs, knock the wind out of you, knock you over, and cause immense pain. The AI definitely shouldn't be taking this many hits and walking around like nothing happened. And I mean, if we're going full PTSD simulator with this game, then I would love to see them go down and have to stagger back to their feet when they take hits, and be unable to walk or hold their weapon properly after taking a round to the legs or arms, or even be completely unable to stand up at all, dragging themselves or their teammates to cover, or shooting back while on the ground. It'd be pretty crazy if we eventually saw some more panicky behavior out of the AI when they were severely wounded. Another little thing with the AI that bugs me is how all of them will yell and give their position away when they're looking for you. They're not in combat, they're just walking around taunting you to come out.
Come on, man. I wouldn't hurt you. I know you. Hey, with the gun.
I know that this is probably a gameplay decision to make the combat more manageable, but I don't know, I'd like to at least try it without that. It's not very realistic for enemy soldiers to be constantly yelling and giving their position away. I think it'd be fine if they yelled to each other during combat when it made more sense, like when they were moving or reloading, but I'd like to see them at least act like they don't want to die. But I'm also open to this being a necessary gameplay device. Maybe it's just so difficult that it's straight up not fun without that little handicap, and to be fair, this is how the PvP encounters happen. Although, you can hear enemy players' proximity chat, which I think is really cool. I love proximity chat with enemy players so much, and not enough games do it. I'm pretty excited to see how in-depth the AI behavior gets, as it's already looking really promising, and Madfinger has stated that they have a lot of plans for them. They are already teasing a near-future update that includes AI patrols and different behaviors relating to the upcoming day-night cycle. The AI will be more active during the day and go to bed at night, or at least most of them will. They've stated that they want the AI to have their own lives and for the world to feel dynamic and lived in. I'd definitely like to see them engage in more sophisticated behaviors, like taking cover and using their medical supplies when injured, and sharing mags or healing each other like players do. The devs have said repeatedly that this is a PvE-focused game, with PvP encounters occurring naturally and occasionally. I'm totally on board with that, but I do think it would be cool to have occasional world events that drew players together and encourage PvP if you wanted it. For instance, maybe a radio call goes out to all factions that they're getting reports of a crashed helicopter carrying supplies at a particular coordinate. Not even a very specific one, just something like north of Fort Nerith. Players from all factions could decide on their own if they want to go explore and try to find it, and get some high-tier loot if they do. I think things like that would be a cool way to encourage PvP for those who want it without forcing it on those who don't, especially since they offer an entire separate game mode called Joint Operations that doesn't have any PvP at all. You can still run into other factions, but you can't hurt each other and they can't loot your body if you die to AI. I honestly don't know if I can recommend PvP in its current state though. In my experience, it just hasn't been fun. There's no back and forth. You either get LZ camped and die as soon as you get off the Little Bird, or you just die out of nowhere while you're walking, or even lying prone in the jungle, no matter how careful you are.
What was that?
Grenade. Did a bullet just hit nearby?
It sounded like
fragment. Oh, fuck. Get hit. Yeah.
Where are you getting hit from?
From the east.
Like southeast?
East, southeast, yeah. Now sure, watching that clip back, I definitely could have handled that situation better. I should have run farther away, and I definitely shouldn't have gone up on that elevated hillside. But I honestly have no idea how people are finding me in the first place because I can't find anyone. I have yet to actually see most of the enemy players who killed me, and if I try and return to the area to get revenge, they're just waiting for me. You either get lucky and stumble upon an enemy player before they see you, or you get killed as soon as you land. Many places to go here.
See that there's a guy right there?
There is?
Right ahead of us. Yeah, right ahead of us.
Shit. Just camping us. Where is he, do you know? Ah! It's that same guy. Here, you can play Find the Sniper. I still have no idea how my friend saw that guy. He must have noticed some movement because I'm sitting here editing and I still can't find him. What am I supposed to do in this situation? Feel free to call skill issue if you want. Do it in a comment, it's good for the algorithm. And I'm the first to admit it. But remember, this is a non-sweaty review, and I'm not sure that's the problem here. The foliage is simply unmanageable. Enemies might as well have invisibility hacks. They disappear into the jungle and it's damn near impossible to find them before they kill you. There's no way to counter someone who's camping in a random bush. It may be realistic, jungle warfare seems like an absolute living nightmare in every sense of the word, but it's not fun in a game. Another major bottleneck with the PvP is just the helicopter system itself, because if someone kills you, they know that you're going to try and come back to the closest LZ to get revenge, so they will just camp it. Plus, the helicopters are loud, so even if they're not camping the LZ or at the wrong one, they know exactly when you get there and what direction you're coming from. You could land at another LZ, but they're so far away that by the time you get a new kit together, fly there, and hike to the combat zone, they've likely already moved on. There's gonna have to be some way to know roughly where enemies are. I think they're going to have to come up with some clever mechanics similar to those in Hunt Showdown where you can break twigs or disturb birds. Thermal optics could help a lot, and I think that the LZs are far too open right now. There needs to be some cover when you land, otherwise you stand no chance of a fair fight. I mean, what am I supposed to do at an LZ like this if someone is camping it? There's literally no recourse here. The location works great for co-op, and that's the primary focus of the game, and I love the idea of adding some PvP into it. But if they want it to work in this game, they're going to need to get really creative with the mechanics, or I just don't think it'll ever be fun for a lot of the player base. I want to play the game, not spend 10 minutes getting the kit together, flying somewhere, dying immediately, and doing it all over again until I've emptied out my locker. As if the PvP wasn't frustrating enough, there's another major issue that I need to point out, which is the team killing. It hasn't been too much of an issue for me personally, but I'm definitely seeing a lot of reports of team killers ruining the game for people. This is definitely going to need to be addressed, and I believe that the devs have already stated that they are working on something similar to what I'm going to propose here, but I will outline my idea for how to deal with team killers. Once you hit a certain threshold of team kills and reports, of which there will need to be some way to accurately differentiate between truly accidental and intentional team kills, I'm not sure how to handle that one, but assuming that that's figured out, I propose that team killers be stripped of their faction allegiance and labeled as rogue agents. They will no longer be able to access their base camp, vendors, or tasks, and can only play with what they can scavenge in world. When they do load the game, they spawn at a random location with a pistol. No backpack, no armor, just a pistol. The general whereabouts of every rogue agent in the server would then be updated every 10 minutes on a wanted board that appears in all the faction's base camps, and other players can go and hunt them and claim a bounty. I think that would be a pretty creative way to punish team killers. You get them off your team so that you aren't worried that any given teammate is going to kill you and take your gear, but you still allow them to play the game, albeit at a severe handicap. By the way, I hate team killers and people who ruin games for everyone else. If you are one of those people, I truly hope that your life gets better. I hope that you can overcome whatever is causing you to act that way. But in the meantime, fuck off. Accidental team kills do happen though, and there's a cool message system in the game that lets you chat with other players, which is really nice. Sometimes you'll get messages warning you about enemy players in an area that you're heading to, and obviously it's great for apologizing if you kill someone. Oh fuck, I'm out of ammo. Not good, not good, not good. Wait, was that? Oh, fuck. Fuck, dude, shit. You were a teammate? God damn it. This game is built around squads, and there are some aspects of the squad play that some people don't like. For instance, how each member needs to complete each task individually instead of being able to complete them as a squad, but I'm not sure how you get around that if everyone in the squad is at different points with their missions. It really hasn't bothered me that much, we just help each other out on whatever mission a teammate happens to be on, but this is something that I've seen people talk about, and I'm definitely open to some improvements in relation to squads and tasks. There's also this ridiculous 15-second timer on the voice chat. I really hate it, and I don't know why it's there. I suppose it's to counter mic spam or something, but I say let it become a problem before implementing a solution like this, because it's really annoying when I'm trying to meet people and make friends. First missions you're doing like 5 times with all my friends, because they kept joining. Like, they would get the game, and then somebody else fucking cut off. Keys are another point of contention for a lot of the community right now. Basically, there are doors that can't be opened without a key, some that are required to complete tasks, and the keys are found on the bodies of dead AI, but the spawn rates are super low for a lot of them, causing people to be unable to finish their missions. I think that basically everybody agrees that the key spawn rates need to be increased substantially, and I do too. I also don't think it makes much sense that I need a key to open thin wooden doors when there is a kick option for other doors of the same type. Keys make sense for secure areas like the doors in YBL, but for a game with a focus on realism where possible, I don't think I should need a key for a door that I could kick down. I think that they should at least put those quest items behind stronger looking doors, but hey, I know I'm nitpicking here. There is a deep ballistics and damage system in the game, and the bullet penetration is pretty fucking cool. Oh yeah, look, it went on the wall. Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it did.
Different bullets penetrate different types of surfaces, so if you don't know the difference between cover and concealment, this game will teach you. All of the ammunition types do different types of damage to both player and enemy bodies. Right now, the M855 seems to be the go-to choice, but they are making ongoing tweaks to the ammo, so hopefully a lot more of it will become viable in the future. If you're a gun nerd who loves all the nitty-gritty ammo stats, don't worry, it looks like there will be a plethora of different ways to put various size holes in people. The entire ballistic simulation is really pretty nuts. The level of detail that they're striving for is pretty damn ambitious. Apparently your gun's recoil is even affected by the change in weight as the bullets leave the magazine. This guy Rilo did a good video on it if you want to see what it's all about. The damage system accounts for organs, bones, flesh wounds, and mental trauma. Hollow point rounds will expand and leave a wider wound channel, rupturing internal organs and causing massive damage. Which means you don't have to be as accurate with your shots, but they won't be very good at penetrating body armor, so they're good for the shirtless bandits that you encounter at the start of the game, but they won't be very good against more professional troops that you encounter at the military locations. For them, you'll need AP rounds to punch through their body armor, and when you get hit, there are various screen effects that occur based on the damage you sustained and that will make it harder for you to play until you heal up. The frag grenades are pretty cool too. They actually fragment, so there's a chance that a frag might miss you entirely. It's really cool, although I don't like how you can't run with a frag held back in the throwing position like in every other game. Once you left click, it does the entire throwing animation instead of throwing it on the release of the click. I hope they change that, and the actual throwing is a little weird and laggy right now.
That frag that you threw, a shard landed beside us from all the way over here.
The healing system is pretty in-depth, but not so much that it's not fun. I think that they struck a nice balance, and it's pretty interesting and unique. There are quite a few different ways that you can get hurt, and each one requires a different combination of first aid items to get you back into fighting condition. The most important thing to keep track of is your blood volume. Hits to unarmored areas that don't pass through any bones or vital tissue will generally cause light bleeding. This will cause some annoying screen effects, making it a little more difficult to aim, but it goes away over time or can be attended to by using a bandage. More serious hits will cause more disruptive screen and stamina effects, making it basically impossible impossible to fight and will require specific first aid depending on what damage you sustained. Hits to bones will require the use of a splint, and hits to your organs will require some good old battlefield surgery that you perform on yourself while mortally wounded with a pair of tweezers and a suture. I guess that's why they adjusted the game description. You'll also need to make sure that you stop more serious bleeds by using tourniquets and replenish any lost blood with blood bags. All of this information is displayed on the health screen using a 3D representation of your soldier that shows what type of damage you are dealing with. You can also examine your teammates and perform first aid on them if they don't have the right stuff for their particular wounds. Make sure that you have your items in your vest, tactical belt, or pockets though, because you can't use them if they're in your backpack. Sometimes you or your teammates will go down and fall into a coma. If this happens, you have a little bit of time that you can revive them before they bleed out. Make sure you stop the bleeding first though. That's the most important thing. You can be performing surgery and they'll die in the middle of it because you didn't stop the bleeding. I know that all of this sounds like a lot, but I actually don't find it too tedious once you get a feel for the mechanic. I think it's a cool system, and you have to be prepared with the right stuff, and it adds another layer of tension to the combat. Remember too that all of this applies to the enemy AI as well. I had a few situations where I shot a guy a bunch of times without killing him, and I was hiding in cover, out of ammo, thinking I was done for, only to have him bleed out a minute or two later. I really like how dynamic and unpredictable the combat is. If you do die, you'll have one chance to return to your body and get your stuff back before you lose it all. And as a non-sweaty, washed gamer that I am, I really like that system. It adds that layer of gear fear that really makes you want to avoid dying, since you do still have the chance of losing it if you die on the way back to your body, and just getting back to it can be a hassle in and of itself. The helicopter rides can be 4 or 5 minutes, and then you still have to make your way back to where you died, and you better hope that you remember where your body is because there isn't any indicator on the map. It's a good system that really incentivizes you to stay alive, but it's not so unforgiving that you just continue to lose all your gear and end up rage quitting. I really like how this game feels eminently reasonable overall. There's a food and water mechanic like in most other games in this genre, but you don't have to eat and drink every 10 minutes to avoid dropping dead, which is something that has always really annoyed me in games with survival mechanics. You can't say that a game is striving for realism and then have me drop dead because I didn't drink water for 10 minutes. You need to keep an eye on it, sure, but you can easily do a few missions without eating or drinking, and you don't even die from it in this game. At least I haven't. Every time I ran out of energy or water, I just got obtrusive screen effects and severe stamina debuffs. Like I said in my Hell Let Loose video, by the way, please go watch it. I worked really hard on it and it needs some love. Community is very important to me, and Gray Zone is very similar to Hell Let Loose in that regard. Despite the community bitching that I talked about earlier in the intro, the overwhelmingly vast majority of people that I've run into have been super nice. There are a lot of current and ex-military guys, and everyone is generally chill and helpful.
Just give me all this stuff, man. That's me. Dude, you really have to give me all this stuff, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, my pleasure. I've got plenty of shit.
I've been given so much gear by higher level players, and it's been super helpful as I level up my traders. I've already made a bunch of friends, and if I hop on alone, I can almost always just tell people where I'm heading and ask if anyone wants to squad up. Well, most of the time. Where are you going? Alright. Good talk. It's not unusual to go out with one person and end up with a full squad by the end of your mission. Enemy up behind the tree. Friendly.
Ready.
Coming around. We got that guy for you.
I have no fucking idea what's happening here, dude.
Oh, join us. I'm helping him out. He's new. People are already making really in-depth interactive maps to help you out if you're stuck on a quest, as well as charts detailing ballistics and armor penetration. I really love this kind of shit. This is one of those games that people can really nerd out on. It's cool, and I'm happy to see that a dedicated community is already sprouting up around it. The sound design in the game is pretty good, but it definitely needs work. The world is immersive, the sounds of the jungle and guns are great, but I think they need to work on the distancing. Firefights that are happening far away from you sound way too close right now, and it's difficult to tell if you need to be worried or not. The directionality is okay, but I hope that they work on the distance issue, because I'm always hearing gunfire thinking it's nearby, only to look at the map and see that it's just my teammates fighting AI, a good distance away from me. There's also an issue where volumes sort of snap from one level to another when you go from outside to inside or otherwise change locations. They don't always seem to fade very smoothly, but this is another one of those early access things in need of polish that I'm not really that concerned about right now. The helicopters are loud though, and they want them to be loud. It's part of the immersion. But it is a little bit ridiculous! They've said that they are working on improvements to the helicopter sound situation, and there are already advanced headsets in the game that should be making louder noises quieter and quiet noises louder, but right now, they only seem to increase volume, so hopefully they can get those working properly as well. I'd like to see an option to attach the yellow earmuff headphones to the outside of your backpack. I wouldn't mind just bringing a pair of those around with me, but I'm not going to use up 4 slots in my backpack when they could easily be clipped to the outside. If you're a fan of customization, you won't be disappointed. You can literally buy every part of a gun separately and build your own rifles. I mean, look at this. I have no idea what any of this is. I just learned enough to be able to mount different scopes and optics, but if you understand all these parts, you can literally strip down any gun in the game and mix and match all the compatible components, and I'm pretty sure that they all accurately correspond to their real-world counterparts. I actually had a guy come up and ask me if I wanted to play the numbers game, where I would pick a number that corresponded to a random gun part, and then he would put it together and give it to me.
Alright, your upper receiver, 1 or 2?
Give me 2.
Alright, for your barrel, 1 through 4.
4.
Your gas block, pistol grip, your handguard, your charging handle, your sight, 1 through 10.
Oh man. I want 9.
Alright, this is your finished gun.
Oh shit. Damn.
Let me go put it somewhere.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Yo, I got the good scope. Look at that. I appreciate it. Don't worry though, if you're not into that stuff, you can still just buy fully assembled guns, and it's not too difficult to swap out mounts and optics, although you might need to have somebody show you how. I would really like it if the item descriptions told me which mount I needed to buy for which gun. That'd be a helpful feature, but in general, you don't have to go too crazy with customization. Bullets still kill people. I really like the UI overall. It's all very smooth and easy to use. You've got the same grid-based inventory system as Tarkov, and you can use backpacks and pouches to squeeze out an extra square or two. At the moment, you can't shift-click multiple items, and there's no auto-sort option, so I really hope they add those things, because organizing all of your stuff can be really tedious. There's that emphasis on realism again. One small detail that I do want to nitpick is the font size and the layout within the item blocks at vendors. The item names get cut off on the small squares, and it's annoying to have to click on each one of them to read the entire name, then close all the windows afterward. I'd like to see the font size reduced and perhaps have the information pop up automatically when you mouse over an item. Overall, I'm really enjoying this game. Gray Zone Warfare is an ambitious project, and even in this early state, it's already an all-around enjoyable experience. They have a remarkably solid foundation here, and given how honest and communicative the dev team appears to be, I think it has a very bright future ahead of it. I've heard some chatter about mutants at Ground Zero, and I guess the developers are heavily inspired by the book Roadside Picnic, which is the same book that inspired the Stalker games, so it sounds like we're probably going to be getting some paranormal and supernatural elements, which is definitely an unexpected twist on what I thought the game would be, but I can totally see that happening, and I am 100% here for it. That sounds awesome. This is fast becoming one of my favorite games, and I'm super excited to see what the future holds. If you want to keep up to date with all the latest news, I recommend checking out the channel Crash Games. This dude is like seriously in love with Gray Zone. He's one of the community leaders that I mentioned earlier, and he seems to be pretty on top of everything related to the game, so definitely a good resource if you want to stay up to date. Alright, that's it for me. If you need me, I'll be in Le Mans waiting for a helicopter. Oh, and one more thing. This video took me fucking forever to make, so I would really appreciate it if you would click all the shit you need to click so that I can make money. See ya!